Hi, welcome to Highland Cottage Books. I'm Martha and this is Highland Cottage, and today I have a jam-packed episode of Highland Cottage Books for you because I just came back from StokerCon, which is the Horror Writers Association's national annual conference. It was ridiculous. It was so much fun. If you have a chance to go, do go. Absolutely go. It is in Pittsburgh next year, I believe June 4th through the 7th. So for today's episode, what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you about all of the books I binged in order to prepare for it. I'm going to talk about some of the readings and panels I went to. I'm going to show you the book haul that I got. I don't normally do book hauls, but I kind of had to. I saw all those books and some of them had to come home with me. They would have been sad. They followed me home, I promised. And I'm going to add 3 books that are coming out this summer to your TBR. I made coffee and iced tea because it's getting a little hot here outside of Philadelphia. So grab a drink, have a seat on the couch, and let's talk books and StokerCon. I made the decision to go a bit last minute, so I didn't have too much time to prepare. The list of authors that were attending was simply ridiculous. There were hundreds of authors there, and if you want to think of, let's say, your 5 favorite horror novelists, at least 3 of them were there. I can almost guarantee you that. There was, let's see, Paul Tremblay, Ronald Malfi, Philip Fracassi, Clay McLeod, Chapman, Grady Hendrix, Eric LaRocca, Sofia Ajram, CJ Leede, Rachel Harrison, Alma Katsu, Cassandra Khaw, S.A. Barnes, let me think, Nat Cassidy. It was ridiculous. Oh, and Joyce Carol Oates. So, and that's just the surface. It's a very deep bench of people that were there. I'm forgetting amazing people who were there, and that is not shade on them. That is shade on my memory. So what I did was I looked at the attendance list and I looked at my TBR and I just started pulling people off that I hadn't read yet, but I had intended to read. So here are 5 books that I binged in order to prepare. That was about 5 books in about 10 days, which is not my normal reading pace, but it worked out because each one of these was incredible. The first book I want to talk about is The Sundowners Dance. This just came out. It is about a man in his 70s who is recently widowed, and he decides to move into a senior living community. He is introverted. He relied very much on his wife in order to do most of the social things and to pull him out of his shell. So he decides to go to Fairview Acres in the Poconos. Mostly he's not kind of running towards something. He's kind of running away from all the memories. He wants to get out of the house. He loved his wife very much. And he's really struggling to envision a life without her, especially since he's now retired. And between his job and his life, that was, his job and his wife, that was the main focus of his life. So he arrives there and all the neighbors are weird. There is they party until late into the night. He can't sleep. He's hearing stuff on the roof. He also has one neighbor, Kat, who has dementia, and she's running around, and he's kind of concerned about the way people are treating her and the medical help she's getting. He's not entirely sure that he's made the right choice, but it is probably too late. As it turns out, there is a meteorite in the community that is a huge focus of all the seniors who live there. And that's strange to him because he's lived in this area his entire life and he's never heard of this meteorite. He figures, you know, as a kid, he probably would have gone to, you know, a school field trip in order to see it, but had never heard of it. That's very weird. And everyone has this weird saying. They say, by the moon's eye. And he's wondering, did he just join a cult? What's happened? This book is gory and disgusting and gross. And also in the last chapter, I was crying my eyes out. It is heartbreaking and beautiful. And I absolutely loved it. I can't believe how much I loved it. So this book hit particularly hard for me because in my day job, I do a lot of ghostwriting on blogs, and I work for maybe 8 senior living communities. I'm interviewing seniors all the time, telling their life stories, talking about the community where they find themselves. And so this was very fun to read in terms of that. Obviously, my clients are much nicer and a lot less gory than what's happening here. But I felt a little bit of affinity for this book. I keep looking at the book for a couple reasons. One, this is, look at that. Look at that. And it feels nice too. So this is the moon's eye. And I went to the signing. There was a mass signing of all the authors who were in attendance were in a big tent, hundreds of authors, and you could just go down and kind of look and see who was there and get your book signed by them. So this author signed for me. He said, you know, by the moon's eye. And it was very fun talking to him. He gave me a little, some stamps to show that I had visited Fairy View Acres. And my favorite part about what happened was that he gave me a brochure, for Fairview Acres, which is very clever. Arthur Peterson, who is the person who runs the community, he's the president of the community association. He's the worst. So look at that punchable face. This book is wonderful. It is heartfelt. It is heartbreaking. It's also just gross. So if you like some cosmic horror with a side of pathos, this is the book you want. So good. So good. In Dead Silence by S.A. Barnes, a crew who normally repair beacons kind of at the edge of the known galaxy are on their last mission when they get a distress call from a ghost ship. It is the Aurora. It is a space liner that disappeared years before and is the most famous space disaster of all time. If it is indeed the Aurora, this is going to be the find of the century, maybe the millennia. So they go and they check it out, and the Aurora is there, but it is not uninhabited, and frightening shenanigans ensue. This book is terrifying and amazing in that when you find out who the bad guy is, of course that's the person who's the bad guy. Yes, of course that's the situation. Of course that's what's going on. I don't want to spoil it, but oh my goodness, this is a great book. Spooky. I'm not normally a sci-fi kind of girl. I like a little bit, but I don't really like hard sci-fi. So this was just the right level of, there's some technology. It's a little advanced. You don't need to know anything more about that. Here, quick, here's some really cool characters and a neat plot. So that is what draws me in. As it turns out, when you're in space, there's no bacteria, there's no heat, and so corpses don't disintegrate, they don't rot. They are very much the way they were when they died. So it's spooky. This book is a lot of fun. The Deep by Alma Katsu tells the story of the Titanic's sinking, but in Katsu's version, there is a something haunting the ship, which may or may not lead to the ultimate demise of the ship, but it certainly makes the trip more interesting and more harrowing for everyone on board. The Titanic had a sister ship in real life called the Britannic, which was retrofitted to become a hospital ship during World War I. They added lifeboats, they did all the things that they needed to do, or most of the things that they needed to do probably, in order to make it much safer than the Titanic. And what's interesting about this is that there were people who, specifically a woman named Violet Jessup, who was on both ships. So she went from being a stewardess, a maid, on the first ship, the Titanic. She survived, and again, this is a real historical person, you can look her up. And she survived, and she became a nurse in World War I, and was stationed on the Britannic, which by all accounts was basically the same ship. So she could relive, as she's walking along, she could, if she was in such a mind, she could just traumatize herself. Oh, this was the hallway I ran down. The Deep focuses on a fictional character, Annie Headley, who is a stewardess on the Titanic. She's Violet's roommate, and Violet has invited her to become a nurse on the Britannic. So we are kind of watching both ships through flashbacks and through the present. We are watching the demise of both ships through the eyes of Annie. It is harrowing because the ship is, we know what's going to happen. We know that the Titanic is doomed, but the people on the ship don't. And so we're worried about icebergs, we're worried about lifeboats and hubris. And at the same time, Katsu has introduced another level with seances, possessions, and ghosts. Costume change, new day, new shirt. The next book I read was Nothing But Blackened Teeth by Cassandra Khaw. It's about 120 pages. I read it in an afternoon. It involves a friend group who have come to this haunted mansion in Japan for a wedding. The bride has always dreamed of getting married in a haunted house. I don't think that she really believes in haunted houses, because if she did, I don't think she'd want to get married in one. And in the long literary tradition of tourists being entitled and not honoring the local customs or traditions, it is a lot of mayhem. This person, I don't know what noise she makes, probably not that noise, but this lady is not someone you want to meet on your wedding day or on any day. The house itself has a horrific backstory that just the story, not even what's going on with these tourists, but just the story of what happens in this house originally is nightmare inducing. A couple things make this book kind of a standout for me. One is that it is about a bunch of 20-somethings who are in a friend group that has absolutely run its course. No matter what happens after this wedding, they're not going to be hanging out much. And none of them have really admitted that they don't like each other anymore, but it's clear they don't like each other anymore. So that's kind of an interesting dynamic between all the people. And the other thing that I loved about it, aside from the cool Japanese mythology, which I actually don't know if it's an invention of Khaw's or if it's based on, existing things. I haven't looked that up yet. But either way, they were kind of the new types of ghosts for me. Khaw's language is so rich, and she is not afraid to flex her considerable vocabulary. I recommend that you have your dictionary at hand and maybe a notebook, write down the books you don't know yet, and use them in your everyday speech in the next few weeks, just as a little challenge. I wish you bon chance with that. American Rapture by C.J. Leede is hands down my favorite book that I read in order to prepare for StokerCon. It's about Sophie, who is a 16-year-old girl who lives in a very repressive Catholic household. Her parents aren't just religious, they are zealots. Her parents go to destructive lengths in order to keep their children godly. And unfortunately for Sophie, who's a bit of a late bloomer, she is beautiful. And she doesn't know it. And she is at one point told basically that her beauty is burden. It is her cross to bear because she's going to tempt people left, right, and center. And when she does, it'll be her fault. So that's the level of playing field that we're going on for this story. Unfortunately for Sophie, she's having her sexual awakening in the middle of a pandemic, and not one of those nice wholesome flu or COVID pandemics. No, this is a pandemic that if you get the flu, there's a good chance you're going to turn into a rampaging sex monster. And I don't mean in a cuddly way. I mean, you'll be aggressive and violent and evil. So she is spending her time running away from horrible people monsters and worrying that she might be coming down with it herself because she is, and I love how Leede does this. She is kind of having crushes on everyone. Not everyone. There are plenty of gross people she doesn't have crushes on, but there's this boy, Ben, who's very, very handsome and kind and smart. And so she has a big crush on him. And then there's a young police officer who protects her, and she has a crush on him. And happily, he does not take advantage of that. So thank you for that. And finally, there's this girl that she meets, a pageant queen, and she becomes friends with her. And then there's a moment where she's attracted to her too. And so it really kind of captures the of being a teenager. And, you know, I like this person, I like that person, I like this person, but no, this person's my soulmate, but oh my God. And on top of that, because her parents have kept her so sheltered, she is worried that, you know, her heart's beating fast, or she's getting a little sweaty, or her stomach feels weird, or like she has weird urges and all the things and all the other bodily reactions that one might have. She doesn't know if these things are normal or if she's, you know, going to turn into a horrible sex monster. So that's kind of funny. And a lot about this book is funny, even though a lot about this book is denotatively horrific. And I would absolutely check the trigger warnings on it because it's about sexual violence and about religious repression and about religious violence. And there's a lot going on there. And so I would definitely check the trigger warnings for this, but it's also kind of lovely and beautiful at the same time, which is my favorite. I love horror books that are literary, like this book, but also, you know, aren't just they tell a heartwarming story, and there is a little justice in the world, and there is kindness and grace. Also, trigger warnings regarding animals. Very, very, very upsetting thing happens to a very, very lovely animal. I started this book in physical form, and then I listened to it on audio because I wanted to finish it in time for the convention. So I listened to it all the way up to Connecticut, and I had the incredible experience of finishing the book, having the last paragraph still kind of in my head, and within an hour I was talking to its author, which was wonderful. CJ Leede was lovely to speak to, and I saw her on several panels. She's very smart, and she's very funny and very wise. At one point in this book, Sophie reads The Valley of Horses by Jean Auel, which is the second book in the Clan of the Cave Bear series, or the Children of Earth series, actually, is what I think it's called. And that book is smutty. It's got some literary merit, which the later books in that series don't have as much merit. But that particular book is pretty good, but it's also very smutty. And when I was in high school, I went to an unusual high school. I'll say that. And we had to do some summer reading every year. So we read like 3 books on the way in so that we could hit the ground running in our English classes. And my freshman year, so my first assignment for this school, this whole new school, was to read Clan of the Cave Bear, which I did over the summer. And it was pretty interesting, lots of interesting world building. It's about a time when Neanderthals and Homo sapiens are on Earth at the same time, which really did happen. The rest of the book probably really didn't happen, but it was an interesting book. And we had to read it. And at some point, one of my classmates, young woman, discovered that there were more books in the series. So she read it, and then she said, oh, holy shit, you need to read this, oh my God. Because in the book, Jondalar, who is the male lead of the book, he is from a culture that worships a female divinity. And in order to honor the female divinity, they like to pleasure women. And they have fertility rites that are very explicitly stated in this book. So picture a bunch of 13-year-old and 14-year-old girls in Connecticut whispering and passing around a hardcover novel like it's drugs. Going, oh my God. And that was my freshman year of high school. So in this book, she reads Valley of the Horses. So I pointed that out. Oh my God. It's absolutely on the nose for this book, for her to be reading that particular book. And Leede told me that I was the first reader who had ever pointed out the Valley of the Horses in specifics. So she wrote on my book, Jondalar Forever. Yeah. While I was at StokerCon, I went to several different author readings, and I have never been to any book readings, so I didn't know what to expect, but I was pleasantly surprised, and I am sure that I will be returning and going to many more readings in the future. The reading I was probably most excited for was for Crudeass, which is one of my favorite books that I've read this year. I've spoken about it many times on this channel, so I'll leave a link down below if you want to know what it's about. When I asked Ajram to sign my book, they signed it with their name and also a little elevator. And if you see, the elevator is going up because they asked me what is the ending that I thought, this book has several endings. What is the ending that I thought was the right ending? You can kind of choose which ending. And I went with hope. I chose hope. Although I admitted that I feared that the darker ending was probably the correct ending, but they said that no, hope was canonical. I don't know if they were humoring me because that is the tricksy part of it, is that you worry that even when you choose hope, you always have that lingering doubt. But this reading was incredible, and I'm actually going to include here a little bit of it. They, in the story, they describe the elevator game, which is a kind of an urban legend, maybe a creepypasta kind of thing, that is a game that apparently you can play, though I don't know why you'd want to, because it seems like you're tempting fate. You can play this game, and if you win, you walk into another plane of existence. Obviously that's real, but obviously it is so creepy that even if it is obviously not real, I don't know who wants to try it. So I'm going to include that here. I also want to say that several of the authors at the author signings had kind of neat little added things that they gave you, like secret little things that they gave you having to do with their books, especially if you had read the books. So I have a subway ticket for the Montreal subway, and I also have a postcard that is advertising one of the art exhibits that is that figures prominently in the book. So that was really neat to have that. So I'm going to include the elevator game here. Don't play it. Seriously, don't play it.
Here's how you play. Materials. You. A 10-story building with an elevator. Instructions. To start the game, players must enter the elevator at the first floor. Press the button for the second floor. Do not proceed if anyone enters or exits the elevator. If they do, start over from the beginning. Press the fourth floor. Press the second floor. Go to the sixth floor. Press the 10th floor. Press the 5th floor. If a woman enters at the 5th floor, do not look at her. Do not speak to her. The person is not a person. Do not exit the elevator. Press the button for the first floor. If the elevator descends, then the ritual has failed. Exit the elevator and don't look back. Try again another time. If the elevator ascends, then the ritual has succeeded. When you reach the 10th floor, you'll find yourself in another world. Although this place may seem similar, you'll notice that the only one present is you.
Victoria Navarra's Let Them Eat Cake it's a short story, and it's about a bridezilla who has commissioned a cake that is life-size and it's a sculpture of her in her wedding dress on her wedding day. And this story is kind of what happens when like narcissism meets nightmares. It is great, and it is both grotesque and weirdly hilarious. So good. Anyway, it was inspired by a post on Cake Rex, which if you're young and you don't know what Cake Rex is, it was this blog where a person would post up horrible cakes that were supposed to look like one thing and then look like another, or just things that had gone totally awry or were in bad taste. And as she was telling the story, I knew, oh my goodness, she must have seen this post because it's incredible. And I'm glad somebody wrote it. So if you want to check this story out, apparently it is set to be published in a magazine that is currently on hiatus. So it may or may not be published in that magazine in the near future. But if it isn't, and if a year passes, apparently she can sell it to someone else, and it will absolutely get sold to someone else because the story is great. So once again, it is Let Them Eat Cake by Victoria Navarra. Keep your eyes peeled for it. I was unfamiliar with Tamika Thompson's work, and what was really neat about going to StokerCon was you'd sit down in a room listening to an author that, was unfamiliar to you. I knew that she was probably pretty great because the line for people who wanted her to sign their books was pretty long. So that's a good indicator that she probably knows what she's doing. But I really enjoyed listening to authors that were new to me. and finding new favorites, and she is certainly going to be in that category. So I keep looking here because this is the book that I ended up buying because it includes the story Bridget is Missing. In Bridget is Missing, there is a journalist named Youssef who has fallen in love with a beautiful, perfect, lovely woman named Bridget. And they fall in love hard and fast. They're about to get married. He's cooking dinner for her, and they're in a small apartment. She's gone off to take a bath. He's pretty excited about that because he's guessing, she's going to take a bath. Maybe I'll get lucky. And she doesn't come out, and the food starts to get cold. And he goes in and he checks on her, a little worried. Why isn't she come out of the bath? And she's disappeared. And the thing is that the way their apartment is built, there's no path of egress that she could have taken from the bathtub to the front door without passing him. So he doesn't know where she is, and it's very weird. And then suddenly she reappears and acts like nothing happened. And so he starts to question whether or not he perhaps has jumped into this relationship too quickly. The final reading I want to talk about is Clay McLeod Chapman's Kill Your Darling. This was part of one of the first readings that my sister and I attended in the weekend. And I had heard that he does a good reading. I had no idea. I had absolutely no idea how incredible a performer he is, how passionate he is. He's clearly an actor, but he's an amazing writer as well. And when you combine the two, oh my God. So in this reading, well, first, it's a novella that he's only read from once before. And I don't know why, because it was incredible. He should be reading this every week and twice on Tuesdays, because he had the entire room in his hand. And honestly, by the end of it, if anybody else had stood up, I would have stood up as well, because it was an incredible performance. I wanted to give him a standing ovation for a book reading. I don't know if that's a thing, but if I coulda, I woulda, because he read 5 pages from this, and it felt like 4 hours in the best way possible. I felt like I was completely in the world that he had created for me. The story is about a man who is older, but for many years he has been traumatized and obsessing over the loss of his 15-year-old son, who was murdered senselessly in a horrific way, in a dehumanizing, awful way. And his entire life, it seems, has been about the loss of his son and what happened to his son in his final moments. And in this part of the reading, in the section of the book that he read, he is kind of drawing parallels between the manner in which his son was encased and enwrapped and suffocated to death. And he's drawing parallels to that in the way that his memories of him as a young boy, as a kid, were sort of capsulized and crystallized behind the plastic in a scrapbook. It was incredibly smart writing. It was disturbing content in the best way possible. It was heartbreaking. At the end of it, I think my sister and I and everyone just wanted to give him a hug, because I'm sure that Chapman has not gone through that situation, but it certainly looked like he had. So when I went to the dealer room, I had to buy this. and this is going to be part of my haul. I recorded part of that reading, and I've actually decided not to share it with you because it kind of would diminish what I saw. I can't actually put into words the way in which he enraptured the entire audience with his physical embodiment of this grieving father, and to see kind of a representation of it on my little phone, I think it would diminish the overall experience. So I'm not going to share that. But I am going to share that it made me buy the book. And this didn't win. It didn't win because Coup de Grace won. And I'm not going to pick a dog in this fight, except to say that based on this 5 pages and how much I love that book, I want them both to win. I want everyone to win. So I look forward to finishing this and reading the rest of it. While I was in the dealer's room, I got Mave Fly, and this is also by C.J. Leede, who wrote American Rapture. I have heard amazing things about this book. It is all over kind of BookTube, and I would have read it sooner, except the cover creeped me out so much that I was like, I can't read that book, ew. But now, having heard CJ Leede talk in the panels and reading American Rapture, I have to read it. I probably will just kind of put a paper over this because ew. But I look forward to reading it. If not, maybe I'll put it down on my bedside table. I'll put it down like this because I don't want this. I don't want this in my life. So from my understanding, and again, I haven't read it, this is about a woman who works as a princess at a very famous theme park in Anaheim, and by day. So she's meeting tourists and taking pictures and hugging little girls and telling them that their dreams will come true. And then by night, she's a serial killer. So fun. I picked up this anthology of queer horror. It's called Bury Your Gaze, and I picked it up because it was edited by Ajram. Again, coup de grace. I can't sing its praises enough. So I figured they have good taste. If they can write a book like that, they can put together a good compendium. So I look forward to that. Also, fun cover. I also picked up The Salt Grows Heavy by Cassandra Khaw, who you're probably getting a theme here. All the books that I ended up binging, I like so much that I had to get more by the authors, and then I had to specifically go to their panels and hear what they had to say about writing and hear their philosophies, and if they sounded smart, and spoiler, they all did, and interesting, well then I had to get their books. So The Salt Grows Heavy is about a mermaid, and an evil mermaid, maybe. I actually don't know if she's evil or not, but she's a mermaid and she has a skull. So maybe she's evil. A mermaid and a plague doctor. And I don't know anything more about that except that Cassandra Khaw wrote it. And that is enough for me at this moment. Finally, I picked up The Fervor by Alma Katsu, the author of The Deep, which was the Titanic book. This one is kind of the same sort of historical fiction thing, but, talking about real life events, but then throwing in a supernatural horrific element. This one also is inherently horrific because this was about the internment during World War II of people of Japanese descent. So it takes place in a camp, and I'm looking forward to this one as well. And that is a gorgeous cover. Upsetting because of the guard tower, but also very beautiful. Some of the readings that I attended were for books that aren't out yet. One of them was for Another by Paul Tremblay, he who wrote Head Full of Ghosts, which I have spoken about in the past. I just want to share that he tells me that Mary and Marjorie say hi. I don't know if I want Mary and Marjorie to say hi to me, but I hope they're well. Anyway, if you, I've spoken about this book before, I will leave a link below talking about how I felt about this book, which is, it's great. It's wonderful. So I'm looking forward to Another, which is, it's called Another, and it is a middle grade book. And so I wasn't really interested in this. I knew that it was coming out, and I wasn't interested because, you know, that's for little kids, right? Well, holy crap. It was scary. It tells the story of a family who has a son who needs friends. And apparently there was an incident that has made him some sort of a pariah. And they have gotten a new little friend for him. And he is described, his name is Morel, and he is described as looking like a sort of clay figure. He has like depressions where his eyes would be. He doesn't have a mouth. He doesn't have a nose. He has the suggestion of a nose. And he doesn't talk, and he doesn't eat, and he doesn't sleep. And he's a little creepy. And he has come to live with the family for a week or so that the boy can have a new friend. And I will tell you that the reading that Tremblay gave, I have never imagined someone getting out of a beanbag chair could be scary. This is the scariest version of leaving a beanbag chair I had ever heard. And it was something that I will never forget. And every time I see someone leave a beanbag chair, I'm going to think of Another. And I'm looking forward to this book. It is coming out. When is it coming out? August 20th. It is coming out August 20th. So be on the lookout for that. I was also lucky enough to see Hailey Piper do a reading from A Game in Yellow, which is her take on the famous story A King in Yellow, which is about a play that if you read it, you go insane. And in her story, it's a group of women, a couple, and they also have a friend. I'm not quite sure the nature of their relationship. Two of the women are together, and then there's a third person involved. And they get a few pages from The King in Yellow. And they discover that if you read it, just a little bit of this book, if you read a little bit of the words, then you stop, then you have this huge euphoric rush of, because you have survived, you feel like you survived a narrow escape. And so they do it for thrills. The part of the book that Piper read from is a scene in which the couple go to a bar and they're having a night out, and there's a guy down the way who sees them and sees that they're together and thinks, ooh, you know what lesbians need? They need a man, clearly. So he starts to flirt with them, and they dare him to read from the book. A Game in Yellow comes out on August 13th. The final book that is coming out soon, I didn't actually go to a reading for, but I did listen to it on the way home. I had an advanced copy of the audiobook, and that is The Library at Hellebore by Cassandra Khaw. This book is so lush and so grotesque and so gory and so much fun. It is about a school, kind of a school, called Hellebore, where people who have extreme magical ability go. Basically, in this world, there are people who, everyone knows that magic is a thing that exists. People have kind of come out of the magical closet, and all the people who are very, very talented, and by talented I mean possibly world-ending and murderous by accident, and kind of think like Xavier Academy, but more evil. not some of the people don't want to be evil. Actually, most of the people don't want to be evil. They just want to be normal people. And society kind of puts them in this sort of university that is kind of an arbitrary school for a couple reasons. One, some people apply and some people are kidnapped into it. Two, there are classes, but people are assigned the classes, and without any reason, there doesn't seem to be sort of, you have to go to a class because you were assigned that class, without regard to your aptitude or your affinity or your desire to be in that class. That's where you're going to go. And the faculty are also very powerful, magical people. And the book starts on graduation day. And this is not a spoiler because it is on the back, but on graduation day, instead of, matriculating and going into the world and being part of a society, being part of the society and being able to assimilate, which is what Hellebore promises, no, actually the students are all eaten by the faculty. And a group of students are now left over because they have managed to escape the first onslaught and they are hiding in the library. This book is incredible and is full of awesome, awesome words and reads like poetry. And the magical creatures aren't like any that I've come across before. There's not like, here's the werewolf, here's the vampire. No, these are students that we meet them and we don't know what their powers are. They kind of unfurl. Khaw unfurls their what they look like and what their powers are slowly over the course of the book. And they have a collection of talents, each one, that are unusual. So it's not like, this one's the mind reader and that's all they do. It's each one of these people is a collection of things that have turned them into monsters. Whether they really are monsters in their heart or if they just do things that are monstrous, that is yet to be determined. But it's very interesting. And my favorite character is Ford. He's not someone I want to hang out with at all. He's awful. But he is a person who can tell the future. And the way in which he does it is so clever. And the idea of it is just so wonderful. And I just hats off to Khaw for coming up with the idea of him. As I mentioned before, my sister was joining me at StokerCon, and she and I are both writers. She does journalism and is starting to work in short form fiction. I work as a professional writer, primarily doing marketing, social media stuff, but I also have a history in playwriting professionally, and I'm working on a long form fiction project. Neither of us write horror, but both of us were interested to see what the writers had to say. And we saw Joyce Carol Oates, who is 86 and is not missing a trick. She is very funny, very whip smart, very interesting to listen to, very inspiring and encouraging, and was great. We also saw panels with Nat Cassidy, Alma Katsu, CJ Leede, Clay McLeod Chapman, Tim Wagoner, Philip Fracassi, and some other very smart people who I'm forgetting at the moment. Basically, if you have a chance to go to StokerCon, do go to StokerCon. Next year, it's June 4th through the 7th in Pittsburgh. I look forward to seeing you there if you decide to make the journey. The thing that I found amazing about it personally is that I'm incredibly introverted. I'm very shy. I'm super awkward. My battery gets run down in crowds immediately. I spend a lot of time going, oh my God, I'm acting weird. Am I acting weird? Is everyone looking at me? I'm a mess anyway in crowds. And I, even though I do conventions, as a crafting person sometimes, I do it from the safety of behind a table where I have my own little castle and people come and see me and I can, you know, I have a role to play. Whereas at this convention, I was very nervous. I've never been to a writing convention. I've only been to 2 conventions in my life as anything, and I certainly didn't know what to expect. But what I found was that everyone was incredibly kind, generous, friendly. I was talking to people that, you know, just other attendees. Everyone was willing to help if you're lost. There were plenty of places that I could, you know, sit and go hide for a moment if I got a little overwhelmed. And everyone there, I'm sure there were several people who, you know, are a little anxious or shy as well. So everyone was treating each other with kindness and grace and enthusiasm because it was just so much fun. And the writers, oh my goodness, it was incredible to talk to all these people who I have on my shelf, you know, who I admire their work and their artistry, and to be able just to go up to them between panels or after they're speaking, or, you know, in a more formal situation like the author signing, and then just tell them and gush all over them and say, you're awesome. And what I was amazed at was that wasn't the end of it, because they actually started asking me questions and started talking to me like I was a real person, like they were actually interested in what I had to say, which is, that was surprising. And I actually found myself kind of running away from all the authors because I'm like, hi, I love you, bye, because I didn't want to, you know, say anything embarrassing or stupid. I'm sure that if I had, I would have been forgiven. Everyone was super kind. And I want to end with showing you that the final book that I got, which again is Clay McLeod Chapman. And this is the Remaking, which I loved a lot. And I speak about this in another video. So I will leave a link to that down below. But what I wanted to say is that he signed it. And if you can see, he signed it as if my name is being haunted. Martha. At least that's how I interpret it. Each of the authors who signed my books, and I didn't show you them all, a lot of them included fun little notes that had to do with either the conversation that we were having, so as they're writing something that is alluding to whatever it is that we're talking about, or something a little kind of Easter egg having to do with their books. I didn't read them until the end of the day, so I actually kind of had this little Christmas present to myself at the end of the day, going through and seeing all the wonderful notes and kind things that they had written. But I particularly liked just that I'm falling or I'm being haunted. Martha. All right. So that is my StokerCon wrap up. Thank you for staying with me this far. I hope to see you in Pittsburgh next year. And if I do, oh my God, come up and say hello and tell me that you saw this video or that you follow me. I would love to chat with you. So if you haven't done so already, please hit subscribe and I will see you next week. Bye.